I am back today to talk to you about something going on in the federal government of Canada. And if you are a blind or visually impaired Canadian, this is very important. If you are also an advocate for blind and visually impaired Canadians, I would very much encourage you to listen and share this far and wide. Write your MPs, because Bill C15, number one, which is the current Bill C15, the Budget Implementation Act, has a very important repealment of a clause that affects blind and visually impaired Canadians. And the CNIB and the CELA, which is the Center for Equitable Literary Access, is already writing letters to the federal government urging them to at least take that clause away from this act. What clause am I talking about? Well, this would be clause 19G1, which is part of the Canada Post Corporation Act, which covers the free distribution through Canada Post of braille or audio or large print, basically accessible media for blind and visually impaired Canadians. So this clause, if this act is passed, would be gone. And although Canada Post and the federal government have both said we are not going to stop free distribution of accessible content through the mail to blind and visually impaired Canadians, taking away this provision in the Canada Post Corporation Act that codifies the necessity of providing this free service is a dangerous precedent, because now that this is gone, first, private companies will be like, well, now I can start charging to have my material A, translated, and B, shipped. And then slowly but surely other public entities could and probably will follow suit in order to, squeeze a little bit more profit out of their business. And a lot of people might say, oh, well, blind people have screen readers or braille displays at their disposal. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because not every blind person has those things. Not every blind person is tech savvy. Not that there are senior blind or low vision individuals who aren't comfortable with using smartphones or voiceover / JAWS, and they need large print or audio format given to them so they can access media. There are also cost barriers, because you can only access the assistive devices program every 5 years, and technology moves up very fast and things are very quickly outdated. Not to mention, again, very costly. And if you are not on a provincial disability assistance program, you still have to pay 25% of whatever is left over that ADP didn't cover, which is still a very hefty price. Then there's just rural and indigenous concerns to think of. And, I've never been one to be like, oh, think of the poor natives, but this is a very true thing to talk about. The access to braille and just assistive devices, and the access to visual itinerant teachers that come up to those rural communities and those northern areas is much less than it is down in urban areas. And even in urban areas, teachers that know Braille are fewer and farther between. It's no longer a requirement to have a practical Braille component when you become a TBI in Canada, which is terrifying. So the amount of Braille literacy, which is already small, will be dwindling even faster, especially if we don't have the spread of Braille information accessible via this free delivery through the Center for Equitable Literary Access and the CNIB. This is a very dangerous precedent to start if we take away this clause. And I urge anybody in the advocacy sphere for Canadian blind and visually impaired individuals, if you yourself are blind or visually impaired, write your MP and express your concern about this repealment of clause 19 G1, because this is not okay. And it may seem small because of how much technology exists, but it is still incredibly important that we allow and preserve the access to Braille and large print formats, because it is absolutely absurd to just assume that every blind person has use, access, and knowledge of all of the technology that is available for them. That is just absurd. There are many causes of blindness and visual impairment. There are many different age groups, some of whom, as I said, are not able to learn these technologies or not comfortable with learning these technologies, and they shouldn't be forced to. If they want to read their information in large print or listen to it, that's their right. And we need to be able to continue this distribution. And this doesn't just affect print materials or media. This affects delivery of adaptive aids through things like the Braille Superstore or Ambutech or Maxi Aids, etc., etc., etc. Even the United States has free matter postage for the blind, so this would be an incredibly huge step back if we, through our budget bill, and it's very interesting how sneaky it is that they threw this into the Budget Implementation Act, thinking that nobody would notice, which, on top of Mr. Carney immediately taking away the cabinet position of disability and inclusion, that was very telling, I would just like to say. And another thing in the budget is that, and I need to do more digging on this, but what I've heard so far is that the disability benefit, the $200 a month, is now no longer going to be counted as income. So that is also going to affect things like borrowing power and the ability to obtain credit, or it's ridiculous. It is designed to keep us in poverty. And this is now designed to keep us uninformed. This is dangerous and it needs to be dealt with. And if you think that I am being hyperbolic, then, well, you're part of the problem. Let me know what you think about this issue. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.